If you're looking into a wireless system, you might notice that many wireless have different bands. This is true whether you're looking for a wireless microphone, wireless in-ear monitor system, or a wireless instrument system. If you're looking at a Shure system, they'll have something like the G58 band, H55, J52. Sennheiser has A1, A, or G band. Electro Voice has 5H, 6M, 5L. Audio-Technica has DE2, EE1. They're all kind of random names. But what does it mean, and which one should you get? That's what we're going to go over in this video. So the names of these systems doesn't actually really matter. What you want to look at is what frequency these bands operate in. That's pretty much what bands are actually. So a wireless system needs to have a wireless frequency to transmit on. If the transmitter is set to 500.100 megahertz, the receiver needs to be set to receive on 500.100 megahertz. That's the way that the wireless system communicates with each other without a cable. The band just refers to the range of frequencies that the wireless can operate on. Every wireless system has a certain range of frequencies that it can use to transmit and receive on. Bands just refer to the range of those frequencies. So let's take a look. The Shure SLX-D, which is the main wireless system I use, they have the G58 band, which goes from 470 to 514 megahertz. The H55 band goes from 514 to 558 megahertz. The J52 band is 558 to 602 megahertz, plus 614 to 616 megahertz. We can look at some other systems. Another system I own is the Sennheiser EW in-ear monitor system. Their A1 band goes from 470 to 516 megahertz. The A band goes from 516 to 558 megahertz, and the G band goes from 566 to 608 megahertz. That means that that wireless system can operate within those frequencies. Again, the name doesn't really matter. What you want to look at is what frequencies it transmits on. You might be wondering, why does that matter? And I'll get to that here in a minute. Some sites don't even have bands. So for example, the Phoenix Pro systems, their PTM 10 in-ear monitor system, which is one of the best budget-friendly in-ear monitor systems in my opinion, but they don't even have bands. They just say, do you want one in 500 megahertz or the one in 900 megahertz? It's the same exact idea. You just don't have to give it a weird name. It's just saying this is the frequency range that it operates in. So now that we know that, what is the point of this? What do you do with this information? First thing you want to do is you want to make sure that the frequencies that you're using are legal in your country. In each country, they're going to have different rules for which wireless frequencies you're allowed to use as musicians. So for example, for the United States, where I'm at, these are the legal frequencies that you can use. So anything here in green means that you can use that wireless frequency range. Most common one is right here, which is the UHF frequency range, and that goes from 470 up to 608 megahertz. A very common one I'm starting to see in the United States, especially with more budget-friendly stuff, is the 900 megahertz frequency range, but it's not the full 900 megahertz. It's 902 to 928 megahertz. Also, some very common ones are 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz. Those are very common. A pretty uncommon one is the VHF frequency range from 174 to 216, although one of my singers actually does use a wireless mic in this range. Some lesser known ones, there is the duplex gap. You can use 657 to 663 without a license, and there also is a tiny gap at 614 to 616. And also, even while doing research for this video, there is the 1.9 gigahertz range, which I honestly didn't hear of until I looked at this chart for this video. So for example, I know when I did my Europe tour in 2019, I could use my wireless system that I had everywhere except for in Germany. So every country is going to have their own rules. Now, if you're buying a wireless system from Sweetwater or Guitar Center or, any sort of well-known music store or something like that in your country, you shouldn't have to worry about this. They're going to know which wireless systems are allowed to be used in your country. What you do have to be careful about is if you're buying used from like eBay or Reverb or something like that. So for example, I found this one on eBay. I'm not going to share who's posting it or anything. They might not know, although they are calling this rare find, which is not true. These are pretty common. But 6 wireless in-ear monitor systems with 9 belt packs for about $5,000, that's a great deal. But if you look on the back of the system, it says this one operates in the B band, which is 626 to 668. This one cannot be used in the United States. So if the frequency is not listed and you're buying used, be sure to ask. I don't know if there's a guy walking around every local bar with a little RF scanner checking wireless systems to see which bass player is using an illegal frequency, but technically you're not supposed to use it. So just make sure you're checking for that when you're shopping used especially. And also, if you do buy them separate, like a transmitter and receiver separately, you do have to make sure they're in the same band. So if I got a Shure SLX-D receiver in the G58 band, and then I was gifted or I found a wireless microphone in the H G55 band. Those two will not work together. So if you buy separately, you also want to make sure that they are in the same band. You have to make sure that it transmits within the same frequency. Okay, so that's a lot of info. So which band should you get? There's a site that I like to use. It's called the Shure Wireless Frequency Finder. I'll link to this down below in the description. But this is a handy tool where you can put in the address or the city or the zip code of where you're playing at, as well as your system, and it'll tell you which band is best. Obviously, this works best for Shure products, but if you have another system that you're using and it's in a similar frequency range to another product, that can definitely be helpful. This is just the best site that I found that does this. So let's just say I'm in Austin, Texas, and I'm interested in buying the Shure SLX-D system. I'm going to hit search, and it's going to come back and it'll tell me that the G58 band has the most available channels, tied with the H55, and the J52 only has one less. So basically any of the bands will be fine. And it gives you more detail, like which group and which channels to use. I do have a video going over groups and channels, which I'll get to at the end of the video, but it'll tell you which ones are the best in that area. Let's do another one. Let's just search for Nashville, same system. Now this one, you can see that they recommend to get the J52 band. So if you're in Nashville, I would recommend getting the J52 band. So this can be a very helpful tool to give you an idea of which wireless band you should get in your area. So there are three things I want you to keep in mind with this information. First of all, the results are not going to be 100% accurate every single time. The website is just accounting for known interferences in that area. They're just saying this is, from a starting point, this is the best system for this area. There's no way for them to know if someone installed a certain wireless in that building already, and therefore it's going to cause problems because they're transmitting on a certain frequency already. You might be able to get more, you might be able to get less. It's just a starting point recommendation. Now here's something interesting. My system is the Shure SLX-D, and the band is the G58 system. I'm in Colorado, so let's do this for Denver. Now it says that there is 0 available. Now, how can this be? I use this system all the time. So I know why it's saying this. There are two places that we play in particular where there is a lot of RF wireless signal coming from those frequencies. So I have the Shure SLX-D system, as well as I also have the Sennheiser EW in-ear monitor system, and that one's in the A1 band. Those both operate in a very similar frequency range and a similar frequency bandwidth. My in-ear monitors at these two locations have a lot of trouble of finding a clear signal. My SLX-D system finds less available channels, but it is able to find more. There's a little bit of a tangent, but the reason for that is because the SLX-D system is a digital system and the Sennheiser EW IEM system is an analog system. I have a whole video going over this, but long story short is that digital systems do a much better job at finding a clear channel and a clear frequency. Again, check out that video. It's definitely pretty interesting. And also, I am able to problem solve for that problem using the squelch feature. I also have a video going over that. If you're not familiar with squelch, also a video to check out. But I should have done this research ahead of time, and I should have bought one of the Sennheiser EW systems in a different band. Probably my Shure SLX-D as well. That would have been a smart move on my end. However, the thing is, like I said, I've been using this at shows, and it is still working. It's only those two locations that I have trouble, and that's only with my analog system. Denver's a big area, covers a lot of space. There's all sorts of different spots that I can play. But also, that brings me to my next point. I don't just play in Denver. There's all sorts of different places that I can play. So let's do this same thing again. We're going to do the same system. That we're just going to stick with the SLX-D system. Let's do a different town. So let's do the same thing for Boulder. So the G58 band has 18 maximum systems. Let's do Colorado Springs. That one has 18 max systems on the G58 band. If I search for Grand Junction, that also has 18 max systems. Let's do a suburb of Denver. Let's do Aurora. That one only has 4 maximum. Let's do the same thing in Inglewood. This one also says 0, but again, I've also played there and it has worked. But my point of this is two things. Is one, I should have done this research ahead of time and chosen a better frequency band for the Colorado area. But second, and more importantly, I play in these towns all the time. You can see that different frequency bands have better results or worse results based on the city that you go to. So it can work in one town and then not work as well in another town. But this brings me to my next point. If you're playing in more than just one town, like you're taking this on tour or you play in multiple shows, all over town, you travel and stuff like that, then the thing that's more important is that you have more frequency options to choose from. That's what's more important. If you're just looking for a wireless system for a venue or a church or a school or something like that, it's staying in one location, then in that case, yeah, use the site, search for which one is best, and then go whichever one has the most available channels. If you are in Grand Junction, Colorado, and you need a wireless for a school or a venue, you want to go with the J52 band because it has the most channels available. Now, if you travel around like I do for shows, what's more important is that you have more options of frequencies to choose from. Have you ever wondered why there's such a discrepancy in the prices of wireless systems? Some are much cheaper and some are much more expensive. So let's look, since we're on the Shure website. And by the way, Sennheiser does have one similar to this, but they only have ones for their digital models. At least that's all I could find, and I don't have any of those, so I'm just sticking with the Shure one. Other sites have this info as well. I just like the Shure one. So if you look at this chart, you can see going from the cheapest up to the highest end wireless systems for Shure. From the BLX, you can see the tuning bandwidth is about 24 megahertz. It depends on the system, but each band is going to have approximately 24 megahertz of frequencies to find a clear signal in. Going up to the SLX-D, you jump to 44. Going up to the QLX-D and the ULX-D, you jump up to 64. You might wonder why the ULX-D is more expensive. Well, there's more features in the ULX-D, so it's not just the tuning bandwidth that you get with a higher end system, but that is definitely one of them. And then the Holy Grail Axion Digital has 146. So you can see that you get more frequencies with the higher end wireless gear, part of what you're paying for. The same is true about Sennheiser systems. The XSW has about 24 megahertz of tuning bandwidth. And as you go up in price, you can see that also the tuning bandwidth goes up as well. That's part of what you're paying for with these higher end systems. Of course, they come with more features as well, but you get more frequencies with the higher end stuff. So if you're planning to tour and play in multiple different cities, it's definitely valuable to go for a little bit higher end of a product to have more of a frequency range. And therefore, the wider the range or the wider the bandwidth, the more options you have for a wireless channel, and therefore it's more likely that your wireless is going to work going from city to city. And that brings me to my third and final point. Do you need more wireless? Are you planning to use a lot of wireless all at once? So using those same charts that we just looked at, so with the Shure one, they also have this part where it says how many systems can you use at once per band, and also how many you can use at once with multiple bands. So with the BLX, it's up to 12 per band. Let's just stick with that, but you can see that they do have multiple bands as well. Going up to the SLX-D, you have up to 32. QLX-D has up to 60. ULX-D has something called high density mode, which allows you to get even more. I go over that in my ULX-D video if you're interested. Axion also does that as well, but that one says up to 116. How many systems you can use at one time on stage also goes up the more that you spend on your wireless. That's another feature that you get. Does this mean you will always be able to use 12 of the BLX all at once? No, that is only in perfect conditions. So do keep that in mind. The Sennheiser chart also has the exact same thing. Max simultaneous channels. As it goes up, you can use more channels at once with price. Two things you might notice is the XSWD only has 5, and that's because it's on 2.4 gigahertz. I go over that in my 2.4 gigahertz video if you want to find out why. I go into a lot of detail on that one. And then also you might notice that the G4 500 series is more expensive than the EWD series, and it has a wider tuning bandwidth, but you can use more of the digital one than you can the analog one at once. I also go over that in my analog versus digital video. You see how much better digital is at finding a clear channel. But again, the point is the more wireless you use at once on stage, the more you have to get the higher end stuff. I do also go over this in my full buyer's guide. I think I went into quite a bit of detail on that video, so if you want to find out more as to why, I recommend watching that video. The number one mistake that I see musicians making is trying to use way too much cheap wireless all at the same time on stage. The more wireless you use on stage, the more you should be using a higher end wireless system at once. Again, check out that video to find out more details. If you use the cheaper stuff, you might be surprised that it will work sometimes, and you'll be like, oh, it works great. But I promise you, when you get to that show where it doesn't work, you will know what I'm talking about. I do have a video going over 5 common mistakes when using wireless music gear. That is the number one problem. I do recommend checking out that video, especially using some of the other tips that I go over in that video. I don't want you to just look at the band. You do have to also consider how many wireless you're going to use at once. So long story short, if you're looking for a wireless that isn't going to move around much, or at all, it's going to always stay at your venue or your church or your school or something like that, go to the website, see which one is best in that area, and then purchase that system. But if you need 1 to 4 wireless, yeah, you could probably go with the entry-level stuff. But if you're looking to buy like 20 wireless for like a large church or an event center or something like that, that's where you're going to have to step up, and you can't be buying the cheap stuff. However, if you're playing in multiple different cities, if you're a touring act, if you're like me and I'm a full-time musician, I play in multiple cities, then that's where you want to start looking at the higher end stuff, because again, the bands themselves aren't super important. In my opinion, what's more important in that case is that you have a wider range of frequencies to choose from. So when you go from city to city, you're much more likely that your wireless system is going to work. If you're still here after this long explanation, I'm assuming you found it helpful, so please do me a favor and hit that thumbs up button. It truly does help feed the YouTube algorithm gods and support the channel, so I would appreciate it. Also consider subscribing if you want to see more videos like this in the future. I will leave my recommendations for wireless gear that I use down below, from budget-friendly up to the high-end stuff for wireless mics, in-ear monitors, and guitar and bass and instrument systems as well. I also do have a buying guide, a full buying guide, and I go into more detail about wireless stuff in that video. And also, I highly recommend that you check out my video about groups and channels. Groups will give you a predetermined bunch of channels that work well within that frequency band. A little more complicated than that. I highly recommend that you watch that one. Now that you understand banks, you can watch the other part about understanding groups and channels. So you can check out both of those videos by clicking the links on your screen now. Thank you guys again for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at ScottYuleMusic. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next time.